Call the last meeting of the Privileges and Elections Committee to order so that Senator Evan can go about his business across the hall. About his business right here and across the hall. And maybe have to leave a proxy. So everybody here, please vote yourself present.
Madam Chair, we have a quorum.
Oh, really? Oh, you're here. Okay. Okay. Good afternoon and welcome. We just have a couple administrative things that will quickly pare down the docket. The first thing is we have an identical bill, and I'm going to ask for a motion. It's House Bill 2046. It is identical to Senate Bill 1577, which is Senator Suderline's bill, and it deals with order on the ballot. It's one that this committee heard. Elected offices go first on the ballot before a ballot question, and I believe, Meg, that reported out of here unanimously. Is that right?
Thank you, Madam Chair. That is correct.
Yes, and I'd like to make, it's actually identical. We don't need to conform.
Move to report. Second.
So I'd like to report the bill. And the motion's been made and properly seconded to report House Bill 2046. All in favor, please vote aye. Okay, thank you.
That's 9-0.
The next one is, I'm going to do a set that we need to conform. Those are House Bill 1620, which is similar but not identical to Senate Bill 1455, which is the Edwards laid on top of the Vogel bill, which is the reorganization, the state board. That bill reported out of this committee. I can't remember the vote, but I'd like to have a motion to conform the House bill to our bill and a motion to report.
So moved.
Okay, the motion's been made and properly seconded to report House Bill 1620. And if you'd like to vote the same way you voted before, if you need a refresher. I think you probably remember. Okay.
Two again.
It was, okay. It was 12-0. Edwards and I did such a good job on that bill that it was unanimous-ish. Okay, so with cautious optimism that we might get to a unanimous vote, but maybe not, the motion's been made and properly seconded to conform House Bill 1620 to Senate Bill 1455. All in favor, vote aye.
Need to vote.
That's to conform. So now they're properly conformed and before us. And I'll take the motion now to, motion's been made and properly seconded to report House Bill 1620 as conformed. All in favor, please vote aye.
Ayes 7 noes, 2 abstentions, 1.
Okay, thank you. The next one is House Bill 2790, which is Delegate Rush's bill. It's very similar to Senator Spruill's Senate Bill 1026. It is the absentee no excuse in-person voting. I would like to ask that the committee conform and send that to a committee of conference. However, I believe, Meg, is an additional line amendment. Is that correct? That we need?
Yes, Madam Chair. We'll have two amendments to conform, adding those two enactment clauses that we had for our Senate version, and then we're also going to add a series of line amendments to clarify or to make some technical amendments. Do you want me to report those or?
And Meg, just to be clear, those are technical only. Those amendments are technical only, correct?
They're technical to
Just
conform
to
with
give-
what current law is. Yep.
Right, just to give people on the committee confidence that nothing in those amendments is changing anything in the substance of what we're going to do, which is take Senator Spruill's bill and report that version out, but lay it on top of Delegate Rush's bill.
Correct.
Okay. So,
Move the amendments, Madam.
so move the amendment. Motion's been made and properly seconded to accept those amendments. All in favor?
Aye.
Say aye. Okay, so the amended version is in front of us.
Move to conform
And the motion's been made and properly seconded to conform House Bill 2790 to Senate Bill 1026. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
And then I need a motion to,
Report.
okay, the motion's been made and properly seconded to report House Bill 2790. All in favor, please vote aye. Okay, just three more, and then we can get to members. I apologize, I just want to move these out. House Joint Resolution 676, which is Delegate Fillercorn's bill. This is a bill that we would like to conform to Senate Bill 676, which is Senator Reeves' bill. That is the tax relief for personal property tax relief for veterans who are disabled. And could I have a motion?
So move.
Okay, motion's been made and properly seconded to conform HJR 676 to Senate Bill 278, I apologize. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Okay? Motion,
Move to report the bill.
okay. Motion's been made and properly seconded to report HJR 676. All in favor, please vote aye.
Ayes 10, no 0.
And last is HJR 615. I thought it would be really fun to actually rehear that bill again. That's the Redistricting Reform Commission bill. But we're not. And I'm going to ask that we conform HJR 615, which is Delegate Cole's Redistricting Reform Bill, to SJR 306, which is Senator Barker's bill. And hearing a motion to conform.
Chair?
Yes.
I don't really want to hear the whole bill. I was just kind of curious if we could just get, just really, were you kidding or?
I was kidding.
Okay.
Yeah. I
So
was
we
kidding.
aren't going to hear
No,
some?
we're not going to hear the whole bill. We're just going to conform. We're going to take the bill that we passed and lay it on top of Delegate Cole's bill
Okay.
in lieu of a couple hours of conversation.
I was just going
on
to ask,
any of
can we
these.
get from staff maybe just, I'm going to vote to conform it. I was just kind of curious if we could find out what was
Okay, so
different.
you like Senator Barker's bill. You haven't heard Delegate Cole's bill. It is very, very different in substance, but in the spirit of it, it is consistent with the spirit of a redistricting reform commission. So I don't know if you want to hear from Meg a second on that. Do you want to?
Just a second. I know it's going to end up in conference.
Okay,
Just
Meg,
want to
do you
get
want
a
to
sense.
distill that down into 15 seconds
Challenge accepted.
or 20?
Okay, so this bill sets up a 12-member commission versus the 9 or 16-member commission that Senator Barker sets up. 4 members are appointed by the governor, 4 are appointed by the Speaker of the House of Delegates, 4 appointed by the Senate Committee on Rules, equal representation for the 2 major political parties with all of those appointments. A plan for congressional districts has to receive 8 of the 12 commissioners to support, and then it goes to the General Assembly for an up-down vote, no amendments, and it does not go to the governor for his signature or veto. A plan for the Senate districts has to be approved by 3 of the 4 Senate Committee on Rules appointees. Then that goes straight to the Senate for an up-down vote, no amendments. It is only goes to the Senate. The House of Delegates does not have to vote on it, and it doesn't go to the governor either. And then for districts for the House of Delegates, 3 of the 4 members appointed by the Speaker have to approve, and then it goes to the House of Delegates for an up-down vote, no amendments. It also does not have to be voted on by the Senate. The bill also sets out criteria for redistricting, the standard type of criteria we have seen in these type of amendments before. And the bill also provides for independent redistricting commissions to be established by governing bodies of counties, cities, and towns.
So the idea is to put these in conference and have a
Yeah.
conversation about.
No,
what we can
I think
work
that's a
through.
great idea, and I
And
also
get a
think
vehicle
ours is
out.
better.
Right. Okay. Okay, so the motion has been made and properly seconded to conform HJR 615 Delegate Coles to SJR 306. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Okay, now the motion is to report HJR 615. It's been made by somebody.
I'll make it.
And properly seconded. All in favor, please vote aye.
Ayes 10, no 0, abstentions 1.
Okay, so that completes the list and shrinks our docket substantially of bills that were identical or had a very similar vehicle that we wanted to conform, with the exception of one. All of those had actually passed out of this committee and passed out of the body. One last one is House Bill 1615, which is Delegate Landis's bill. It is identical, or not, yes, it's identical to Senator Reeves's bill and my bill. What the bill did was move the June primary. You all recall that fairly long debate and the questions and answers, and we heard from the registrars about the bill. It reported out of this committee and then failed to pass the full Senate. So I point that out to the members of the committee because it didn't pass the Senate. I don't know that that affects your decision here in this committee about whether to send it out to debate it a second time. But I thought I would just bring that to your attention before we conform and vote on that bill. So I'd like a motion to conform H. Bill 1615 to Senate Bill 1243.
So moved, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, the motion's been made and properly seconded. All in favor of conforming, please. Well, actually, they're identical, sorry. So we still have to conform. All right, actually, we don't, no, sorry. So all in favor, let me revise that. The motion's been made to report House Bill 1615. I apologize, I asked for the wrong motion. They're identical. And again, that's the one moving the June primary. All in favor?
Madam Chair,
Yes, Senator Sproul.
so 1615 was identical to your bill.
Yes, to Senator mine and Senator Reeves's bill that moved the June primary a week later.
How did we vote on it?
Meg, would you like to refresh the members?
I got to check behind Brother Cole,
Madam Chair, Senator Edwards was the only one that voted against it in this committee. When we got it on the floor, it died 22-18. And I
I'm good.
So
Okay.
it wasn't party line, but it was
No.
pretty close probably.
I'm good, thank you.
Okay, all in favor of reporting House Bill 1615, please vote aye.
Yeah, I vote for Cole's bill, yay.
You already voted for Cole's other bill. I don't have a, Senator Deeds, I think you have a proxy.
Ayes 6, noes 5.
Okay. Okay, is Delegate McGuire here? You get to go first because you're going to run somewhere really quickly.
Thank you, Madam Chair. House Bill 2034 adds due process to the removal of registrars. And in simple terms, it basically gets rid of any hint or perception of politics. And first up, I'd like to move a one-line amendment.
Okay, Meg, you want to give us the amendment?
Sure. On line 67, after the end of the sentence, insert a new sentence which reads, "For purposes of this subsection, the electoral board shall receive counsel from the county or city attorney pursuant to section 15.2-1542.
So, Madam Chair, real simple with the amendment. It just basically says that the county city attorney is going to have the authority on with handling these discrepancies. So House Bill 2034 requires the Virginia Division of Risk Management to assign counsel to the defense of any member of a local electoral board or general registrar subject to a petition for removal upon that member's or registrar's application. Currently, a registrar can be removed by a local electoral board for any reason in a non-public process. And I've heard countless examples throughout the Commonwealth where someone was let go as a registrar for simple things. There's a real famous case where a 30-year registrar came to work and there were many sheriffs. So she wanted to know, hey, how are you guys doing today? And she realized they were there for her. She had 7 minutes to clear out her desk. So she decided to fight and get her job back. She spent $70,000. She was found no wrongdoing and got her job back, but of course is out $70,000. And there are many other examples. One example was a woman got pregnant during an election year and got let go because she got pregnant. So I don't think that anyone would be a dog catcher or any other job in the Commonwealth if they could be fired based on how they dressed or any other whim. So I think this adds due process. It takes the Republican side out, it takes the Democrat side out, and it makes it a legitimate career field. Now, I have several folks here willing to testify today, and thank you.
Okay, so Delegate McGuire, I've heard a lot about the bill, and I just want to clarify and ask this question. I believe this amendment was presented in an effort to alleviate a concern that was raised, and I think this may almost get peace in the valley. Is that right? Am I
think so.
understanding that correctly?
That
That there
was
was
the
an
one-
objection and this amendment was meant to ameliorate that concern?
Yes, and I believe that the responsibility is already in the hands of the county attorney or city attorney, but this just clarifies the responsibility.
Okay. Is there anybody in the audience who wishes to speak in favor of this bill? Of course, Senator Deeds.
Does the amendment remove the responsibility of representation from the Division of Risk Management?
Can you help me out with that, Walt?
Walt Latham, President of the Registrars Association. What the amendment is an attempt to do is, because the process is being changed so that the Electoral Board would petition the Circuit Court for removal, it makes sure that the Electoral Board has some legal representation as they go through that process and don't have to go through the.
Madam Chair,
Senator Deeds.
my question is, who pays for that representation?
Well, it would be the county or city attorney. It's already their duty.
But who pays for the Division of Risk Management? Is that the state's responsibility then?
I believe that's the Division of Risk Management. They handle defensive cases, not aggressive plaintiff-type cases. So they wouldn't necessarily help the Electoral Board, from what I understand, if they were seeking the removal of a registrar, because that wouldn't be a defensive action. They would handle it if we were told, hey, we think you committed fraud or something. Then we could call DRM and say, hey, someone says we committed fraud. Could you help us out? They would come help us then because it's a defensive situation. But if we had to go after for someone for, say, a contract, or in the case of the Electoral Board, trying to remove a registrar, DRM, it's not my understanding that they would help with that, because that's not a defensive type case.
Does that answer your question, Senator Deeds? Okay. Okay. Robin Lynn.
Madam Chair, members of the committee, Robin Lynn speaking on behalf of the Goochland County Electoral Board, where we removed a registrar 3 weeks before the election using a county personnel policy. We understand that county and city personnel policies are not uniform across the state, and we think that this legislation might clarify that, and we asked for this specific amendment in order to be able to engage in the process without having to hire external counsel if we were plaintiffs going to the judge seeking a petition. And we support this bill.
Okay, so you support the bill. Okay. Walt, go ahead, come back.
I didn't get to give the good word on why I supported this bill. I'm president of the Registrars Association, so I'm also the complaint hotline for many problems that go on around the state. I think this would be an improvement because it would make sure that it would improve the perception or remove the hint of any kind of inappropriate removal. Right now, the standard for removal of a registrar is failure to perform duties. I've had a registrar who told me that her board thought because the governor's party changed, the registrar needed to change. I've had a registrar who was told by her board not to process registration forms, and this registrar was in fear of losing her job. When it's her job to process registration forms, I am aware of registrars who've lost their jobs because the Republican Party was out to get them. I'm aware of a registrar who lost his job because the Democratic Party was out to get him. And so you have situations where local personalities and politics can get involved. And this would make sure that there's some kind of circuit court oversight of this so that we don't have litigation after the fact, and to make sure that the registrar isn't out $70,000. I mean, we love our jobs, but $70,000 after the fact just to take it out of our personal pockets is kind of a lot to expect from public servants.
Okay, thank you. Is there anybody else in the audience who wishes to speak in favor of the bill? Is there anybody in the audience who wishes to speak in opposition to the bill? Wow. Everybody's together. Is any member, Senator Eben?
Yeah, I had a few questions, Madam Chair. Two for Walt, and I think the others for the patron. Walt, I wanted to ask if it wouldn't be easier to address this by just having standards for removal rather than perhaps everything that's in the bill? Uniform standards on why you would remove a registrar and why you might not?
I don't think that would work because there's already a standard. It has to be for failure to perform the duties of the job. And right now, the way it is arranged is you have a 3-person electoral board. And so all you have to do in the case of Ms. Hicks in Westmoreland County, from what she expressed to me, she had a good relationship with her board. A person came in, kind of made things complicated. Next thing you know, she was being removed from her job. She then had to go to court and seek it. So the fact that there are standards, that would be great. It's just not everyone. The rule of law is important. It is not always universally appreciated.
Okay, and just to follow up.
Senator Eben.
Or maybe the patron wants to address that first. I don't want to stop
I'd like to
him.
address that one. That this process, should this bill pass, is the same process used for other appointed officials. So we're not creating something new. We're just having registrars be a legitimate organization just like other appointed officials. It's a system
A question for the
already
patron. Is this not the same process that is used for the electoral boards currently?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
And
Senator Eben.
yeah, about that process, just to ask, do we not have executive session where these things are usually discussed by the body in private, and now would it be an open court proceeding? Is that what would happen?
Yes, that's what I would anticipate would be the case. And I know that's been a concern that some of this stuff would be aired out in public. And I'll be perfectly blunt with you. I've always thought it was un-American for people to say, if you have nothing to be ashamed of, you have nothing to hide. But when you're the registrar, you're a public official. And if you've been slapping people's behinds or going around setting the voter registration files on fire, you have no reasonable expectation that this is going to be some kind of a secret. And I don't think we should continue to cherish a process that allows that kind of stuff to be swept under the rug. I don't think that has turned out to work too well.
Okay, and I do have one final question.
Okay, Senator Eben.
If someone is getting fees, do you get your fees paid from Department of Risk Management even if you eventually are removed? Legal fees?
This would, right now, from what I understand, the registrar, when they are removed, they're no longer the registrar, so they don't have the benefit of the Division of Risk Management. This would, once the registrar is petitioned, or the circuit court is petitioned to be removed, the Division of Risk Management would be involved, and they would defend the registrar just as if the registrar were being charged with, I don't know, not processing registrations or being sued for that or some other misdeed.
So if the registrar was formed, Madam Chair, if the registrar was formed for dismissed for sexual harassment and they were found guilty of it, their fees would still be covered?
It would, well, if it were part of the as part of the removal process, it would be covered as them defending against the removal. If someone sues the registrar civilly for sexual harassment, I don't anticipate that's what's covered by this bill. This deals with the removal.
So
To me, this deals with the removal process, not the fact that Sally or Tom might sue the registrar for sexual harassment. Like in a civil case, this would be a removal process.
Okay. I'm sorry, final question. I don't want to belabor the committee's time.
Senator
But
Eben.
if the committee, if the electoral board was dismissing the registrar for some kind of cause that the circuit court found legitimate, other than the performance of their duties, whether it be or misperforming their duties, their legal fees would be covered even if they were, so to speak, guilty or the cause is found legitimate, whether it be sexual harassment or not processing applications or favoring one party over another?
Well, they would have the Division of Risk Management representing them. So
Okay, so they would not have, okay.
that's
so
my understanding of how the division, I mean, I have thankfully not had to have the Division of Risk Management help me out with problems, but I know of people who have been when they've been, an election potentially been contested or some other lawsuit against the locality. And from what I understand, the Division of Risk Management is very good. They have a list of attorneys they arrange to represent the electoral board and the registrar. And so that's what I would anticipate is they would call, Attorney Bob, and Attorney Bob would say, okay, you've been, they're trying to remove you, so let's prepare your defense. And then it would go to circuit court, and the judge would make a decision based on the petition and the defenses.
Thank you.
Madam Chair,
Senator Sproul.
I was trying to find out if a clerk who works at the pledge of the city council, if something happens, I'm trying to find out are their fees paid by the city. I was trying to find out also the Bar Association. who a clerk work for the bar, work for a lawyer, and something happened where the bar association defend that clerk because that clerk worked for different lawyers. So whatever happened, and so he would have their fees paid by the association. So I'm trying to find out what the other job would be. Are we open Pandora's box now that everybody who works for a small firm association that are appointed? So if that happens now, everybody said their fees got to be paid. So that's what I'm scared of with that is because the three members in the registrar's office who pretty much, I guess, appoints that person, and if there are the misunderstanding, what have you, and you were saying, well, you want their fees paid. And I'm not afraid of everything that you got that works for someone, their fees want to be paid. Now, who can pay them? And I don't think it's right as for the city or anybody to do that for them and not for others. But I think that everybody who works for the city, including the state, if there are the misunderstandings, we're going to pay their fee, we should do it for all of them. Thank you.
I would say again, this, Madam Chair, that this is just for the removal process.
And it's my understanding, too, that the Division of Risk Management is covering the electoral board when they are sought to be removed.
Already.
So I understand what you're saying is, would everyone get the benefit of counsel? And the answer is no. But the registrar doesn't serve at the pleasure of the electoral board. The registrar is supposed to be a nonpartisan person who does the job without privilege or preference for party. If you want the registrar to continue or to be perceived as a person doing things without a favoritism or political preference, then you need the registrar to be in a position to say no to someone.
Madam Chair,
Senator Sproul.
could I ask you who hired that registrar?
The electoral board appointed the registrar.
And how in the electoral board, they're appointed by their different parties?
They're appointed by the circuit court judges on recommendation from the parties.
Recommendation from the party. And don't you believe that, let's be honest now, do you really believe that from my party, do you believe that I will represent my judge to be appointed Republicans and I'm a diehard Democrat? Do you believe that?
Do I believe what?
Do you really believe that I will recommend to the judge to appoint a person on that board, knowing that what I'm getting at is still boiled down to a party thing? Because if our party, and which I'm part of a Democrat, do you really believe that I'm going to recommend to this judge, to recommend you to sit on that board? If you were a Republican, I'm a diehard Democrat, I'm going to recommend to the judge, especially if it's our turn to take control, I'm going to recommend a Democrat. And there are some good Republicans, by the way. I'm not knocking that. But I'm going to recommend a Democrat. So when it's...
Well, that's how it works
So
now.
what I'm saying, what I'm getting at, you still have the board is controlled by Democrats or Republicans either way, and they, in turn, she works for them. Regardless of who in control, they work for them. You still have the Republicans or Democrats in charge of that person.
Can I clarify one thing, Senator Sproul, that I think may help, and it might not make you more comfortable, but I will just explain this by way of background. The bill, as it's written currently, doesn't change how the registrar is appointed. It's still by the electoral board. So that discretion isn't taken away. This bill only does one thing, and that is as a process of removal. And I understand why you may have an issue with that. As part of the removal process, it doesn't leave that totally to the discretion of the electoral board. It actually now changes that and makes that a determination that has to be made just as if you were a member of the electoral board. So in many ways, it brings those two. And I understand not everybody would agree with that, but I just want to make that clarification, that the party can still appoint that registrar. Okay, Delegate McGuire, any closing points? Any other members? Okay, Senator...
I have a question.
Okay, Senator Edwards, and then Senator Dance.
Okay. I'm trying to make sense of this. It sounds like the only thing you're adding is a standard for review, because the way I read it, maybe I'm misreading it, that any officer or general registrar can be removed by the circuit court. And there was no standards there. But I think you're adding a standard that you can only be removed in this section for failure to discharge duties. But Is that right? This is very confusing. Because you can still, and you have, the electoral board has two choices. One, the existing choice is remove the person on notice for failure to discharge duties. Then the other category is to institute a proceeding in the circuit court to remove the general registrar, either or.
Right, so this bill would have the circuit court have the decision process.
But it also provides that the electoral board can do it anyway. I think.
Meg, you want to help me out here?
Meg, would you like to speak to that?
Somebody can explain what this adds or takes away from the existing process?
So, Madam Chair, Senator Edwards, if you look at lines 64 through 66, that's where the substantive change in this bill happens. Instead of the current process in which an electoral board can just remove from an office on notice a general registrar, we've stricken general registrar and have inserted some new language that says that the electoral board, by a recorded majority vote, may institute proceedings to remove the general registrar. So we've actually stricken general registrar from the section that says they can just be removed on notice.
Okay, Mr. Chairman.
Senator Edwards.
The judges, if you're saying that's the only way you can be removed is to file a petition to remove the general registrar, and the standard is for failure to discharge duties. So now a judge would have to decide whether or not the general registrar, has failed to discharge duties. Is that right?
Walt, you want to respond to that?
I think what this bill basically does is it shifts litigation from after the fact to before the fact. After the fact, the registrar goes into debt to get a job back that pays less than what the Westmoreland County registrar lost in legal fees. But if you don't fight for it, then your name and reputation have been dragged through the mud. What this does is it has litigation before the fact where the circuit court judge has to hear the reason for the removal, and then he or she would decide, yes, that is legitimate, or no, it is not a legitimate reason. And so instead of creating a spectacular slugfest in the media and litigation after the removal and then having to reinstate a registrar possibly, this basically makes this be fleshed out ahead of time.
Senator Edwards.
Madam Chair, but the standard is failure to discharge duties, and a circuit court judge has got to figure that out?
The standard is the same. The problem is that the standard is remaining the same. The problem is that not all electoral boards understand that standard or stick with it. When a registrar is told, not all electoral boards have the benefit of legal counsel when they're going through this process. And so they are not always necessarily following the law when they consider removing a registrar or make comments to registrars about removing them.
One alternative, Madam Chair, would be simply to leave it the way it is, but grant the general registrar who's been removed the right to have counsel paid for by the state, if that person decides to sue to get the job back. That's another way to approach it.
That is an option. The problems that leads to, or I'm not really sure how that fits in with the Division of Risk Management, because I don't know how they represent former employees. Secondly, if it's found to be illegitimate, then meanwhile the registrar, I'm sorry to be just really kitchen type and tabletop issues here, but meanwhile the registrar has a mortgage and a grocery to pay.
Well, the other possibility, Madam Chair, is just
Senator
simply,
Edwards.
if you win, you get your attorney's fees.
Yeah, if you win, it's just you may not necessarily get it back. The registrar in Westmoreland still hasn't gotten hers back.
That's true, Madam Chair. I mean, it
Senator
kind
Edwards.
of shifts the burden. If you think you were wrongfully discharged, file a suit. If you win, you get attorney's fees. Otherwise, you don't.
I don't know that that's any different from what we currently have.
Well, there's a big difference. I mean, it's a question of who goes first, you know.
Well, that's what I think the bill is trying to do, is to make sure that you have the hearing and the litigation before you have the removal.
Speaking of the bill, Madam Chair,
Senator Edwards.
my concern is a circuit court judge having to decide whether the general registrar has failed to discharge duties. That's pretty amorphous and pretty high standard. I can't see many, unless somebody's really done something wrong, I can't see a circuit court judge finding that.
Well, that is what's in the current code, so that's what the standard is now.
But it's
So-
the other way around, though. I mean, who's got to go first? In other words, you could sue and say, I didn't discharge my duties, give me my job back. Here, a judge has to decide before the person gets discharged that the person did not perform their duties properly. Anyway, that's.
Okay. Senator Dance.
I think I withdraw my question. I think,
Okay.
no,
Senator-
I take it back.
Okay.
Is this just one isolated incident that you're reporting to, or is this,
Many incidents,
you got many recorded incidents?
many incidents throughout the Commonwealth. And all this does is these guys are walking on eggshells. I mean, imagine if you had been in this job for 15 years, 20 years, you're feeding your family, everything's great, and you come to work and you're gone, and maybe because someone doesn't like the way you dress. This adds due process before the fact, not after the fact. And it's what we're doing for other appointed officials. I mean, they have throughout the Commonwealth, we have similar system for other appointed officials. So it just gets us in line with everybody else. Because I can't imagine me or anybody here wanting to have a job for 30 years where you might come to work and be gone because someone doesn't like your attitude.
But you
Okay.
function.
Senator Dance.
Thank you, Madam Chair. But in this position of registrar, you really function at the pleasure of the three men and women, or men or women, however the three makeup is, and it's normally done based on who's in the governor's seat. Is that not right? Whoever's there, tell me about that. So it's
Yeah.
normally when, if
We do
there
not
is,
serve at the pleasure of the
not the
electoral board.
registrar, I am talking about the electoral board, the 2-1 or whatever the ratio is, that you function at the pleasure of those three people are the ones that would put you in office, that hire you, right?
They appoint us,
So
but we do
you-
not serve at the pleasure of the
Okay,
electoral board.
they're the ones that appoint you, hire you, whatever you want to call it. They're the ones that determine that you're the best person for this position, right?
Correct.
And so you're saying, well, we don't want them to be one tier above us when it comes time to them to sign, the majority of them to say that I'm no longer functioning. So it's a good and a bad thing. To the extent that if there is an excellent employee, anybody should be happy to have that person work for them, right?
I would hope so.
Right. So you would say, number one, to start with the electoral board as far as that we appoint good people, and they get appointed by party people, right? They make recommendations, and the judge normally goes along with the 2 or 3 that they send up. So all of them are considered to be good people, good Virginians that's going to serve in this capacity. So what you're saying is, but we don't trust them to do a good job because they might be wishy-washy, and so we're going to put the safeguard, and we're going to make the registrar at the same level as those electoral board members, because whatever they get, the registrar should get that too.
We're saying that the registrar is supposed to function in an independent capacity as a
Madam
registrar.
Chair, that was just a simple yes or no, because see, I'm a simple person. I'm just trying to figure a simple flow chart. Could you tell me a yes or no? Or you want to put them all on the same tier? You want the
No.
registrar to get the same considerations that the electoral board members are getting as far as risk management? They have somebody
Yes.
to represent them?
For that part, yes.
Well, that's what I was asking. So you want to say, to an extent, I can say, you can't mess with me because I got what you got, okay? Is that right?
No.
Okay. Tell me why it's
Senator
different.
Dance.
Because the electoral board, if the registrar is not doing their job, the electoral board can petition to remove the registrar. The registrar cannot petition to remove the electoral board.
That's okay.
Senator Dance, does that answer your question?
Madam Chair.
You can keep
Okay, I'll come
keep
back.
asking. Who said? Go ahead,
wait, you
Senator
said-
Dance.
So you're saying that the registrar lose their rights as a citizen, that they could not petition, that one of these electoral board members are not functioning and doing what they're expected to do in their capacity? Is that what you're saying?
There is no well, the registrar, if the registrar were to go talk to the judge and say, one of my electoral board members is not doing their job, the electoral board could just remove the registrar for pointing that out.
That's one person. One person can do that? I thought it had to mean a majority.
It would
of
just be 2.
Well, you said if one person is bad, you think the other one will say me too? I'm sorry, I'm gonna just,
No, yes, that
Okay.
does happen.
Senator
That's,
Dance?
that's why
Madam Chair, is there some way that we have access to all this data that supports all these people that have been so egregious that they've been getting rid of registrars left and right, and now we need to do this? Is there such, as he says, many?
Senator Dance, let me ask you this. Would it help you if you had the opportunity to ask someone who represents the electoral boards,
Someone
who
that
is here
has-
to speak to that, who might be
Yeah.
able to clarify that for you? Because that might
Yeah, give me
be a better
ratio of
solution.
how-
Would somebody from the electoral boards like to come up and maybe respond to Senator Dance?
X number of cases out of X number of registrars.
Madam Chair, I can cite off the top of my head problems in Westmoreland County, the city of Hopewell,
Two.
the
I know
county of
about that one.
Fairfax, the
Three,
county of Goochland.
4.
Those are issues which I am personally familiar with. And speaking on behalf of electoral boards, as president of the Virginia Electoral Board Association, yes, we appoint registrars, and in my sense, we ought to be doing more to encourage in the, you might call the support and maintenance and the care and feeding of the registrars. And I know that there are cases where registrars have been very poorly treated. And I found this to be an extremely difficult and thorny issue, having gone through the removal process 3 weeks before election, frightened that we would not be able to produce an election. And we had support from electoral board members in other parts of the state, from registrars, from neighboring communities, from other registrars who helped us pull our organization out of the ditch. And once again, Goochland County had the highest turnout of any locality in the state, but we were afraid we were going to crash and burn. This legislation, I think, puts a cloak of protection that's necessary for registrars to remove them from, in some cases, the political threat. And I wanted the amendment for electoral board members so that we could, in fact, have counsel if we needed to remove a registrar who was no longer performing the duties and responsibilities that were required.
Madam Chair.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Madam Chairman.
Yeah.
I move the bill be reported as amended.
The motion's been made and properly seconded that the bill be
Mr. Chair,
reported.
Madam
Senator
Chair,
Edwards.
Is there somebody else who would like to speak?
Kate Hanley, Secretary of the Fairfax County Electoral Board. The question that I have about the legislation, and I recognize the need for standards and support for registrars, is how does this interact with, registrars have terms. They are appointed for 4-year terms, and then they need to be reappointed or not reappointed. And I think there is an Attorney General's decision way back in the day about the requirement to not take politics into account when you appoint people for terms. And I just, and that's not permissible, and I certainly support that. But I think the question is how, to the registrars, how would this interact in the non-reappointment? If you didn't reappoint somebody for a term, would you, if you did not do that, would you that be in the same position of needing to go to a judge? And that's the question I have about the legislation.
Okay. Meg, do you want to respond to that? I think they're asking a technical question, and then we have a motion.
Thank you, Madam Chair. This is all drafted in the context of the actual removal of a general registrar. If it's at the end of a term and they're just not being reappointed, I would not categorize that as removing them. It's just
Two different things.
Two different things.
Okay, so the answer is it's totally different, an application. Okay, so we have a motion properly made to report House Bill 2034 and seconded. All in favor, please vote aye.
Who has? Chase?
Ayes 8, no 6.
Okay, bill report.
Thank you, Madam
Thank
Chair.
you, Delegate McGuire. Delegate Cole. I'm glad we had that nice, easy bill ahead of you. Maybe redistricting commission would have been better.
Would have got you in the mood.
Yeah.
Hopefully this one won't be as controversial as the previous ones. This is House Joint Resolution 591. And all it does is, it's a constitutional amendment to allow the General Assembly to make minor technical corrections after a redistricting in order to reduce split precincts, solely for the purpose of reducing split precincts. I think it's a fairly straightforward resolution. I've tried to have this bill pass a few times, and it has passed the General Assembly before. However, it was vetoed by the governor. I know some of our friends on the other side of the aisle insist that, the Constitution does not allow you to make any changes after the redistricting process, and this would put into the Constitution that we could make minor technical adjustments for the sole purpose of reducing split precincts.
So this addresses the concern that's always been the issue when the bill failed.
Yeah.
Okay. Is there anybody in the audience who wishes to speak in favor of the bill?
Thank you, Madam Chair and members. Katie Boyle with the Virginia Association of Counties. We have some longstanding language in our legislative package in support of unsplitting precincts. We would be certainly glad to work if this were to move forward on ways to really limit this so that it's truly technical adjustments and not anything beyond that. So appreciate your consideration. Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, my counties are hugely in favor of unsplitting. Is there anybody else who wishes to speak? Anybody who wishes to speak in opposition? Is there anybody in the committee? Okay, the motion's been made and properly seconded to report HJ 591. All in favor, please vote aye.
Ayes 8, no 6.
Thank you.
Great, thank you. Okay, next up is Delegate Krizek. Good afternoon and welcome.
Good afternoon. Thank you, Madam Chair. HB 1790 is, so the problem it's helping to fix is that right now the code is pretty clear what the poll closing process is on election day. Anyone in line by 7 o'clock is allowed to vote. But if you, there's no equivalent code section or language in the code about the closing process for in-person absentee voting, and all this does is it codifies that it will be the same as election day, the same process. So anybody in line would be able to vote.
Okay, I've had a couple of visits from people who like your bill. Is there anybody in the audience who wishes to speak in favor of the bill?
We're in favor of this bill. It makes it clear that, makes it consistent with the closing of the polls and the ending of registration. We were kind of mystified why it hadn't been in there all along, and then Delegate Krizek's eagle eye caught it. So we're very happy to have this.
Okay, is there anybody in the audience who wishes to speak in opposition to the bill? Is there anybody? Okay, so the motion has been made and properly seconded to report House Bill 1790. All in favor, please vote aye.
Ayes 14, no 0.
Thank you.
Well, that was easy. Okay. Next up, Delegate Wilt.
Thank you, Madam Chair and committee members. House Bill 2764 simply says that if I'm registering, helping someone register to vote, or if they've already registered and I took their registration, carried it to the registrar's office, that I would need to include my name, telephone number, and a group if I'm working for a group. Now, Madam Chair, the problem is, and the registrars, they're fully supportive of this, the problem is sometimes the wrong information is on the voter registration. Now, if that information is wrong, the registrar potentially doesn't have a way to contact that person to get the right information, But further, if a person's working on behalf of a group or behalf of themselves and they're out registering people, and if they are somehow giving misinformation completely, they don't intend to, just accidentally, but the end results, there's wrong information on the application, the registrars would simply like to have a source to be able to go back and say, hey, do you know what the correct information is? Madam
Okay.
Chair, that's.
Is there any member of the committee who has a question for the patron? Any, Senator Deeds?
Madam Chair, tell me what the differences are between this bill and the bill that was vetoed last year.
This bill and the bill last year, I don't know, Madam Chair.
Meg, maybe Meg knows. Meg, do you know?
Yes, okay, please.
This year, it specifies that this applies to paper applications versus all applications, including electronic. We also included language that says that registration applications cannot be denied on the basis of the third-party assistance information not being provided, and also specified that the information that's required pursuant to this section is not going to be entered into the registration record of the applicant.
Is there any other member who has a question? Is there anyone in the audience who wishes to speak in favor of this bill? Is there anybody who wishes to speak in opposition to the bill? Come on up.
I'll go first. Hi, I'm Stephanie Isles. I'm Director of Elections with the City of Norfolk, and we are in favor of this bill. We get a lot of third-party voter registration groups in Norfolk. We've got Norfolk Naval Station and 2 large universities, and this would help us identify if there's an issue with them registering people to vote. If there's a problem, we can contact them, reach out to them, and educate them. It would also push more people to the online voter registration so that we could get complete applications, which we're always trying to do, so that will help with the voter registration process.
Great, thank you. Come on up. Good afternoon and welcome.
Hello, Madam Chair. Chris Piper, Commissioner at the Department of Elections, and we thank the patron for the amendments which remove the fiscal impact, but the administration still remains opposed to the bill. Thank you.
Yes, Senator Cosgrove.
Mr. Piper. Why?
Madam Chair, having the additional information can cause voter confusion with just the additional information as it would be prepared on the form. So we remain opposed to the bill.
Okay.
Okay. Committee operates on a motion. Okay, the motion's been made and properly seconded to report House Bill 2764. All in favor, please vote aye.
Ayes 8, no 6.
Okay, bill reports. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chair, committee members.
Next on the list is Delegate Lindsay. Good afternoon. I'm sorry you had to wait so long.
So am I.
I'm so sorry.
Madam
Anybody
Chair.
who's suffering, you can go and we'll call you.
Madam Chairman, have you ever been to House Courts?
Yes, I have.
Tell them to sit down.
Yes, I have. Yes, I still have post-traumatic stress from it. Thank you very much. Okay, Delegate Lindsay.
Madam Chair, members of the committee, I'm here on HB 2625. This is a bill that deals with recounts in situations where there are multiple recounts or multiple simultaneous recounts during an election cycle. The whole purpose of this bill is to have rules promulgated by the Circuit Court and likewise by the State Board of Elections to address these issues. We recently had the situation in Norfolk, Virginia Beach. I represent 2 districts, and I've been here a while. We recently had the situation in Virginia Beach where there were actually 3 different recounts at the same time for a city council race, and it was a madhouse because there just wasn't uniform policy, both with the Circuit Court in terms of promulgating the rules to follow, and likewise with the procedures as put forth by the State Board of Election. We believe in advancing this measure, that it addresses that and it makes sure that everyone is on the same page and they know how to proceed.
Madam Chairman?
Okay, yes. Senator Cosgrove.
Thank you. I represent a large part of Virginia Beach, and this really was a kind of a three-ring circus. Since there was three candidates, three races, three recounts, and there was really no uniformity whatsoever. This bill doesn't hurt anything. It makes common sense. It really will give a better sense of comfort, I think, to the electorate if we have the circuit court lay out the rules prior to the recount.
Okay. And it reported out of the House 99-0.
Yeah.
So I think you're in great shape, but I will just ask, does anybody want to speak to the bill? Yep.
Move to report.
Okay, the motion's been made and properly seconded to report House Bill 2625. All in favor, please vote aye.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Have a great afternoon.
Thank you.
Next, Delegate Hurst.
Good afternoon, Madam Chair, members of the committee. I present to you House Bill 1719. And the purpose of this bill is to try to improve already a very high standard that Virginia has set in terms of campaign finance disclosure law, but to extend that to also individuals who are running for town office when they would potentially represent a population of less than 25,000, and they've also accepted or expended already $25,000 in funds. So right now, these individuals would not be required to file a campaign finance disclosure form. We just would like for them to have to do that as well.
Madam Chair.
Senator Reeves.
Thank you for bringing this bill, because I ran out of bill space and I was asked by Culpeper Town to carry this bill, and we share the same space, Senator Vogel and I, and they've asked us several times. So I appreciate you bringing this bill. I think it brings transparency, and I think it's much needed. Thank you.
Is there anybody else who wishes to speak? Is there anybody in the audience who wants to speak in favor of the bill or in opposition to the bill?
Move to report.
Okay. Motion's been made and properly seconded to report House Bill 1719. All in favor, please vote aye.
That's 14-0.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Madam Chair, members of the
Delegate Yancey. Delegate Yancey is not here. Delegate Fillercorn. Delegate Yancey.
Been here long.
Wait, Delegate. Yeah, she's on the list next. Okay, go ahead. Good afternoon, welcome.
Good afternoon. Thank you, Madam Chair and members of the committee. Before you have HB 2204. And this bill is quite simple. It removes the requirement for an election officer to repeat back the name of the voter's address out loud. And when appearing to vote, it's quite clear that the individual, the voters already state their address, or they provide an ID directly to the election official. So this is a public safety and a privacy issue. I don't think it's necessary for an individual to repeat their address out publicly so that everybody present can hear. This came to me from several different individuals who had personal experiences. And I think in this day and age, when we hear so many stories, especially from women, I think we should come down on the side of safety. I can't think of any other example where an individual has to repeat private information like that so that the public can hear it. It's a simple fix, and it provides people with the privacy that they deserve. It also makes polling places more efficient and go through the lines quicker. It would save time. It doesn't cost any money. The bill has a lot of support. The Registrars Association, the Electoral Board Association, Virginia Poverty Law Center, Virginia Sexual and Domestic Violence Action Alliance, and we have several individuals, Madam Chair, who are here to testify in support of this bill.
Okay, if they want to come forward, if you're in favor of the bill, would you come forward?
We've got Walt Latham
Briefly.
with the registrars. We've got Robin Lynn with the electoral board, Sushila Varkey, and Jonathan Iglesias.
I would like to thank Delegate Fillercorn Walt Latham, President of the Registrars Association. I'd like to thank Delegate Fillercorn for bringing this bill again this year. We support this bill. We think it will make the polling place much more efficient and protect any voters who have concerns about having their name restated.
Robin Lynn with the Virginia Electoral Board Association. In my opinion, the only reason for stating the name and address is for the political partisans who are watching, and that this would be a reasonable safety measure. Thank you.
Good afternoon, Madam
Good
Chair.
afternoon.
Jonathan Iglesias with the Virginia Sexual and Domestic Violence Action Alliance. We think this is a pretty common sense measure to make the polling process a bit more trauma-informed for those who have either experienced stalking or currently experienced stalking or have have been, victims of family abuse and domestic violence. So, thank you.
Good afternoon.
Madam Chair. Sushila Varkey with Virginia Poverty Law Center. I work on domestic and sexual violence issues for VPLC, which is why I support this bill. Thank you.
Thank you. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon. Kirk Showalter, General Registrar for the City of Richmond, a member of the Registrars Association Legislative Committee. As a urban registrar, I get frequent complaints from voters about having to repeat the address. They've given it once. They are uneasy with who might be listening, so we fully support this.
Thank you.
Hi, Stephanie Isles, Director of Elections, City of Norfolk, and we fully support this bill for the reasons previously stated. We also do receive complaints from individuals who are persons who have been threatened or stalked or have a court protective order against someone and have to indicate their name and their current residence address. The only way they get through on this is having a post office box established where they would have to pay a monthly fee, in which case they still have to indicate that as well. So this would help protect those persons, and we support it.
Thank you. Is there anybody in the audience who wishes to speak in opposition to the bill?
Yes, ma'am. Madam Chairman, Clarabelle Wheeler, Vice Chair of the State Board of Elections and former electoral officer in precincts and someone who recruits for election officers. We all know, because we've all been in polling places, and they are frequently large, they are frequently noisy, and we hope they are frequently busy with people trying to vote. It is incumbent upon the election official at the polling place, at the poll book, either paper or electronic, to write down or mark the name of the correct person standing in front of them. If you hand a voter ID, meaning a photo ID, a driver's license, the address on that license bears no evidence to the address on the poll book. They can be completely different. Witness, former governor, who voted, but his driver's license was a different address because they hadn't changed the address for the governor's house, and we had to, the poll officer was told that the address doesn't matter. It's what the person tells you. When you've got a lot of names on a screen and they all say John Jacob Jones, and you're in a hurry and there's noise, it's important that the election officer repeat back that name with the address so that John Jacob Jones standing in front of him says, yes, I live on Park Street, not Perk Street. That could be very close. Because if the wrong person is marked on the poll book, then when that person whose name has already been marked comes in to vote, that second voter will have to fill out a provisional ballot and come to the provisional canvass to verify that, yes, I didn't come into the polling place until 2 o'clock in the afternoon. I was not there at 10 o'clock in the morning. This is a matter of accuracy, of keeping complete and accurate records of voting history and the voters who come into the polling place, so we know that our voting records are accurate. It's a simple matter for the election officer to repeat the name as they read it off of the poll book so that it's correct. Thank you.
Madam Chairman.
Senator Cosgrove.
It's highly unusual when Ms. Wheeler and I disagree on an issue. But I think that Delegate Philicorn has brought forth an idea that I think bears a great deal of common sense from a protective standpoint. If the poll book operator, the election official, needs to have it repeated, basically if the voter wants to repeat that, I think that's fine. But to have that out loud recitation, there are people with very loud voices and there are people with very soft voices. But I think this is a common sense measure, and I hope that we'll support it.
Madam Chair.
Yes, Senator.
I don't often disagree with my friend Senator Cosgrove. In this case, I'm delighted to, because I did monitor a poll, and I saw exactly what Ms. Wheeler saw. The last name was the same. The first name of two people both started with E. The poll worker did not even try to distinguish, did not repeat that name. She just said, okay. And about 2 hours later, the real person came in, and I knew her. And so there is an opportunity for mistakes if you're not doing it correctly. And we need to make sure that everybody's voting and everybody's voting correctly. And there shouldn't be an opportunity to make mistakes like that.
Madam Chair,
Senator Sproul.
well, why can't it be if there's a name mentioned and if the person doesn't understand what the person's saying, then just ask them again? But not everybody. You might have 100 people to come to vote, and maybe out of 100, might one or two that you didn't quite understand. You ask them again because you didn't get their names. Ask that person. But why ask all 100? If one is sufficient, then go through that. And that one that just might come up you didn't understand, or they didn't understand you, you ask that person. Well, why do everybody? Thank you.
Madam Chair.
Senator Eben.
I just wanted to direct the members of the committee's attention to line number 17. Right now, the voter has to provide their full name and residence address, which they can give in writing if they have some kind of fear of their safety or want some privacy. So by giving that verbally, and if they give it verbally and there's nothing prohibiting from the officer for saying, I didn't get that, but if they want it in writing or want to give it in writing, that's pretty good clarification, especially if they don't understand their accent or their language or whatever, and say, can you just put that in writing for me? That's pretty easy to match up with the poll book. And I think it will save time for those that are pretty obvious, that have a license or whatever that match.
Okay. Committee operates on a motion.
Move the report.
Second.
Okay, the motion's been made and properly seconded to report House Bill 2204. All in favor, please vote aye. I don't know how to vote. I have Chase. She marked it yes.
Ayes 10, noes 4.
Should I vote her no?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you, members of the committee.
I'm voting exactly how she marked it. Okay. Next is Delegate Ingram. I'm going by the sign-up list.
Yes, I don't think this will take but a few minutes because it's House Bill 2148, and it's a common sense bill, but a couple people in Hopewell didn't have common sense. Let me tell you what all this says is that on a ballot, it must be of the same size, font, in other words, what happened was that they put some of the names in capital letters and some of them in small letters, and that's all it does.
Madam Chair, move the chairman. He's my friend. I move the report.
Okay, the motion's been made and properly seconded to report this brilliant bill that passed the House 99-0.
That's right.
And is fair.
Thank you, Ross.
And is fair. Man, you are popular. You want to carry everybody's bill? Okay, all in favor, please vote aye.
That's my friend. And he's a Republican,
14,
too.
no 0.
Tell ya. Senator Sproul is a good friend to have.
Thank you.
Whew. Okay. Delegate Sickles.
Good evening. Good evening.
That's right.
Matter of fact,
Certainly last but not least. Yeah, Yancey. Somebody want to go get Yancey and Delegate Sickles can wait another 45 minutes?
I'm sorry about not signing up.
I felt bad that you had to sit there the whole time. I
learned a lot,
apologize.
and I wrote a memo to the boss down in Louisiana. So
Oh, that's fabulous.
got a little bit done.
That's
Yeah.
great. We aim to make you highly productive, whether you're sitting on the front row or
Thank
you're
you.
standing there in the hot seat. We want you
Thank you.
highly productive.
I got 3 bills, Madam Chair. Can you do 2178 first?
We'll take them whatever order you want, I think. Let me see here. Yeah.
There may have been one of these in the Senate, Meg.
Let's
It's
see
a
here.
security
I might
bill.
have had an
There's
order. Just hold on one second.
Okay.
Go ahead and do House Bill 2178. That's fine. Go ahead and do
Oh.
that first. And no, there was no similar, nothing left has anything similar in the Senate.
Thank you, Madam Chair. This bill is sought by the administration or the agency, actually, to give the Board of Elections the actual authority to make sure that our boards are using secure systems. It's a technical bill, and we have had, this is the big issue nationally about folks trying to hack into our systems. We want to make sure that every local board and their associated software, in addition to Verus system, is not hackable. And so there was an instance where a locality was using a software made by a famous company overseas that is not a friend of the United States, and they refused to change their system. So this would give them authority to deny access to Verus if they were not, did they not have a secure system. That's all it does. It's just to provide more oversight to make sure we're not getting hacked into.
Okay. Is there anybody in the audience who wishes to speak in favor of the bill?
Madam Chair.
Senator Reeves.
Delegate Sickles, is there a budget amendment that goes with this? Because it's an unfunded mandate to my localities, I think.
There were amendments. Well, we don't do budget amendments for localities, but there were some amendments that we added in the Senate to help the localities that VACO and VML wanted, and they were not concerned about the cost, especially after I took their language. So that's before you, right? But there is no, you can ask the agency if they're here, whether there's a cost, but I did not have a fist on this bill. No, Chris.
Chris, go ahead.
Madam Chair, Chris Piper, Commissioner at the Department of Elections, and obviously we support the bill. But to address Senator Reeves' question, we did work very closely with VACO and VML, as well as the Virginia Local Government IT professional organization, and they presented the amendments, and I think that we've worked out any concerns over unfunded mandates.
Madam Chair.
Senator Reeves.
So, like the bill that I got struck today for you, you could fix it with a memo. Do we need a bill to fix this? Aren't you guys already working on this? It's my understanding that you guys are already heading this direction.
Well, Madam Chair, and to respond to the question, currently the department or the State Board of Elections cannot cut off or restrict access to Verus if there's a security concern. So this bill addresses that issue.
Is that subjective or objective cutoff? When you make that decision, is it subjective or objective? Because I can see where this could be a real political problem in the same breath if maybe you didn't want somebody to have access.
Understood. The amendments address that because the local government, there will be a work group that the department convenes with the local governments to address standards, go over the questions, make sure that there's nothing being done untoward. They also, if there is an issue, they have 7 days to comply before any restrictions would go into place. So these concerns were addressed with the local government IT and VACO and VML, and I'm not sure if they want to speak to it.
Madam Chairman.
Yes. Senator Peake.
Yes, another question for Mr. Piper. So Madam Chairman, these changes in this, are they going to require any kind of updates to the computers and review of the computer systems and all of those type activities?
Well, Madam Chair, to respond, so there would be a long process to determine what the standards are. The localities would submit those, submit their security plan, addressing that they're in compliance with those standards. If there was, and we'd be working with them in a work group to address any of these concerns. The important thing here is that if there is a security issue that could compromise electoral data, we want to be able to address it and address it quickly.
And this has,
Senator
Madam
Peake.
Chairman, so this has no fiscal impact?
Madam Chair, no.
Yes.
From the state level, y'all
No,
support? Yeah.
Madam Chair, because we would be just addressing these standards or developing the standards in correlation with the state board, and they would issue them out. We can't. I can't imagine there being a situation where there would be security standards that we would put on so tight that would be a significant impact. Typically, these standards, in fact, I'll just go, we will follow the VITA standards, the NIST standards, which I would say the majority of localities follow. So this shouldn't be a significant impact. I can't even imagine that seeing a significant impact. But I'd like
But Senator Peake, to your question, you were asking, I think, about is there a fiscal impact for the state? And I don't have a letter, so the answer is no. Finance has not requested this bill.
Yeah, and then I'm just so shocked that we can do all this effort to maintain the security of our entire voter system, voter registration for the entire Commonwealth, but just to check Social Security numbers for people to register cost $800,000 to the state. That is I'm amazed that we can do this for nothing, but checking Social Security numbers cost $800,000. Thank you, Madam Chairman.
Okay, Senator Eben.
Briefly, I just want to remind the committee and, well, really the people in general laws, Senator Peake and Reeves, we had my bill that would have said we'd meet Department of Homeland Security standards, but this bill goes, I think, in a good direction for the elections by saying that they're going to report annually on their security plans, and further that there are going to be regulations and standards that they'll have before them, so they're guided in the right direction. And
Madam Chair.
And it went up,
Reeves.
yeah.
I appreciate my colleague's comments, and I did like his standards. I am having some trouble with the language on 322 to 323. The representatives selected shall include representatives from both rural and urban localities and localities of varying population sizes. That's just anybody. And the second thing is, I don't see anything in there that would allow at least one member or two members from the Senate, this committee, or the House committee that takes these things up to be part of that as well. So my recommendation is we need to narrow that language down to who those people are, and how that process is going to happen. And then I would make a comment that I think we need somebody from this committee and the House committee, standing committees on P&E, to be part of this process.
Madam Chair?
Yes, Senator Spruill.
I'm trying to figure out where all these questions come from. It came out of the House 99 to zip. Now, I know we're smart on this side, but they got one or few smart guys on that side. I'm trying to figure out all these questions, unless we're just trying to kill a bill. You know, we're trying to kill a bill and say so. I'm just trying to figure out how did we come out of the House 99 to 0, and we asking all these questions.
Yeah, I think what he means is you should take this personally.
Well,
That's what he's trying to say.
Madam Chairman, nobody asked to be a part of it on our side. I would not have any opposition to adding members of our committee and your committee to this. I think there's going to be plenty of people looking at this. This is a very important national security issue. This is not really a flippant thing. This is something we really need to have some oversight over.
I like your bill. Yeah, could I ask for, Senator Cosgrove.
Yeah, just to try to belay my friend from Chesapeake's worry about this. These questions were asked because some bills have a great financial impact statement. Others don't. They make no sense. You know, fine, I'm not on Senate Finance, or, I wasn't on House Appropriations. But it just seems to some of us sometimes that basically if an administration wants to do something, there's no financial impact statement. And if they do want to do something, or the vice versa, if they don't want to do something, there's a big old financial impact statement. And if they don't, if they do want to do it, well, hey, yeah, it's not going to cost anything. So I don't think there's any impetus here to try to kill the bill with that. There's a genuine question about the FIS system. Thank you.
Okay. Anybody, let me ask really, okay. Well, the motion's been made and seconded to report the bill. I don't, unless somebody has something, a concern or an objection.
Madam Chair?
Yes, Senator Reeves.
I really have heartburn not putting one of us on this study group, because we've taken up bills in this committee to talk about overseas voting for our military and everything else and keeping that system secure. And now we're talking about setting up policies and regulations for our whole voting system. And that conversation is going to come up, and I just feel strongly that we need to have a representative, not just willy-nilly representatives selected randomly, but people who've actually dealt with the issue. And we're going to hear this issue again, and I'd rather listen to one of my colleagues, regardless of the side of the aisle that they sit on, so we can get some intelligent conversation going, because we're going to hear this again once they get their regulations passed.
Okay.
Madam Chair?
Senator Eben.
If it makes Senator Reeves more comfortable to have representatives, I would move to unravel it and do that. My only question would be, when there's a work group making regulations for particular systems, if we normally have representatives, I don't have any problem with having representative. I just didn't know if that was our normal course, but if that's the case, I would second any motion to unravel it.
So, Senator Eben, I will tell you, in the committee that I chair, I am actively putting members of my committee on some of these work groups. We're looking at the vape work group, and Senator Spruill shaking his head. So we do that. As chairman, I do put members on, just so we have an understanding when all those bills come back, I can get the straight scoop from a member.
So if we want to amend it, if there's, if you, well, I guess we don't need to amend it, we just have to not vote on the motion if there was an amendment? Is that, I don't know how that works.
So right now, the bill is properly before us, and there is no other companion, so the proper motion would be to amend the bill to include a representative from the legislature.
Madam Chair, I would make that amendment at least one member from each chamber. The House will probably say they need two, but at least one member from each chamber,
3 to 1.
aside from the selective committees that handle that. Go ahead, Meg.
I second that.
Senator Eben.
Madam Chair, perhaps it should be either the chair of the two committees or someone appointed by them. Or their designee.
Madam Chair, I was going to suggest that we could add a sentence in the second enactment clause that says at least one member from each of the standing committees on privileges and elections selected by the chairman of such committees shall also serve on this work group.
I think it's a very good amendment to have
Madam Chair,
some
you saying let the
participation.
chairman pick.
Pardon?
You let the chairman pick.
Yeah.
Not the chairman themselves. Now, I don't mind John Cosgrove, but the rest of the Republicans, I can't know.
You don't trust me?
Yeah.
You move that, and I'll second it?
Yeah.
All right,
I'll second it.
Right. I think it's what he said, as long as it's not John Cosgrove. He's for the amendment. No, I'm just teasing. I know what you meant. You're looking after your man down here. Should we just write John Cosgrove into the bill?
There you go.
Yeah. Okay, so the motion's been made and properly seconded to amend it per Meg's description to include members of the legislature, which I personally think is a wonderful amendment. All in favor, please vote aye. Aye. Opposed? Okay, so we have one no. Okay. I think they weren't going to speak unless they were in opposition. Would you like to come, if you're in favor of the bill, because I think this bill is going to do well unless you're not. Welcome. Go ahead.
Robin Lynn, Virginia Electoral Board Association, I'd like to say that having participated in some of the discussions with the Department of Elections on cybersecurity, I consider this bill to be essential. We need to give the Department of Elections the authority and ability to be able to protect this whole system, which is an ongoing, moving target. And we need to be able to enforce that in all localities. Thank you.
Okay, Walt, you went away and shook your head. Walt, did you have anything to add? You went away and shook your head. Do you want to say anything? If there's anything you want to express, I certainly don't want to bottle it up.
I took it under advisement. If you're in favor of it, you don't have to talk because it looks like it's doing well. I figure.
Oh, okay.
In between the lines, shut up and sit down.
Okay, so shut up and sit down. Thank you. That's perfect. Okay, anybody else have a comment?
We have Vaco and VML.
Yes, Vaco, go ahead. Go ahead. You came all this way. You get.
Thank you. Yes, up the street. Thank you, Madam Chair and members. Yes, Katie Boyle with the Virginia Association of Counties. We did work with the administration, and Delegate Sickles was gracious enough to take our amendments. I think we would like to have a longer term conversation about resources for election administration to include sort of the technical responses. And we would be glad to have that conversation with members of the legislature. Thank you.
You like it?
We're good.
Thank
Okay.
you.
Awesome. We have a motion.
Madam Chair.
Right?
I
Yes.
hope I don't have to go put this into conference over getting two delegates on this advisory thing, but
Madam
I'll try
Chairman?
to convince them to take one of each.
Madam Chairman,
Senator Cosgrove.
I would just admonish the delegate that if this comes back with two to our one, you can say bye.
And I'm going to be a Republican. I'm going to vote no.
Well, it's already been established. You're only voting aye if it's Cosgrove on the board. So I already think you're. Okay, so the motion's been made and properly seconded to report House Bill 2178. All in favor, say, vote aye. Aye.
Ayes 12, noes 1, abstentions 1.
Which one do you want to do next? 2760. We got two more, Madam Chair.
Okay. Yeah, I'm sorry, the buzzer already rang. You're done.
Oh,
No,
gotta
just kidding. Okay, your next bill.
Okay, 2760, having to do with GIS mapping. And this,
And just to be clear, we do have a letter for this one, so the proper motion when he's finished, and you want to report the bill, is that it needs to be referred, or it needs to be referred to finance. Sorry, go ahead.
Madam Chair, this bill would give the Department of Elections the capability to have their own GIS service and help the counties, particularly that do not have GIS, to make sure that voters are placed in the correct districts. We've had some bad headlines about this. There is a similar Section 1 bill that the Senate has passed, but this one has actually been funded by the House, about $260,000 for one FTE. This was not an administration bill. This is just something that we did in the House. It was funded in the House budget, and there you have it. I think that there is some support for this in our counties that particularly don't have this service, so that they'll be able to ask the state for help. It's pretty straightforward. It just gives them a capability they do not have now, and hopefully we will be able to, the registrars will be able to check up better, because as you recall, last year with the bad headlines we had, there was a lot of finger pointing going back and forth on who was at fault for doing this. This bill is an attempt to make sure that doesn't happen again.
Okay, is there anybody in the audience who wishes to speak in favor of the bill?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Members, Katie Boyle again with VACO. This, I think, will be a helpful resource to our localities, especially the small counties that don't have the in-house GIS capability. So appreciate the delegates' work on this. Thank you.
Walt Latham, and I'm here as president and also registrar in York County, and we like the bill. As they were pointing out, there are some counties that are somewhat small and don't necessarily have the same resources that other counties have. When I was doing redistricting in 2011, I found it very helpful to have GIS. We were able to check for errors and run that through the, Dr. Theopolis or whatever computers that they use to sit there and figure out who might be in a wrong place.
Can I interrupt you?
Yes, sir.
You're in good shape, I think, on this one. If I can just go ahead and speak.
Okay.
Members, this is the same bill that Senator Chase has named into her bill to be this bill, is my understanding. SB 1018.
They might have done that.
They've done that.
Mm-hmm.
So
Okay.
we reported that bill out of here. So, Madam Chair, I'd make the
Right,
motion to.
and we were not going to conform because yours was broader, and we thought that was actually good, so we weren't sure what the House had done, but Meg has just told me what the House did this morning, so that's perfect, and I think we like your bill, and we would want to make the motion.
Report and refer to finance.
Okay, motion's been made and properly seconded to report House Bill 2760, and then refer it to finance. All in favor, please vote aye.
That's
Okay.
1400.
Next.
Okay, my last bill is having to do with mailed-in absentee ballots due to, the number is 2682. Problem we're trying to solve is registrars running to the post office to make sure they get everything on December 2nd, the second Tuesday at 7 o'clock. I don't know where that came from. The Postal Service standards have not kept up with 21st century, so the standard for a first-class mail now is like 9 days. So none of us would be surprised if we had a constituent say, I mailed my ballot in 2 weeks ago and it didn't count because of the vagaries in the postal system. This bill will not solve that, but it helped by making the postmark the indicia of accounting or not, and it would be, if it's postmarked on the Tuesday, then it could be counted on at the same time, the same day as the provisional ballots are 2.5 days later, Friday at noon. So it gives so if you're coming from overseas, if you have an overseas ballot, or foreign service people or military serving overseas, that have a couple days extra to make sure their vote is counted. and it doesn't get, they don't get, there's a probability that they're lost in the mail is reduced a little bit. There is an amendment because there was concern by the registrars that, and they can speak for themselves in a minute, but there's a concern that this bill would require them to wait until Friday to count these ballots, and that is not the intent at all. So Meg has a line amendment to make sure that it can count just on Election Day and these, and like they do now, and anything that comes in this 2.5 days afterwards with the proper postmark on it would be able to be counted. So that is what the bill does. And
Madam Chairman.
Senator Ruff.
Sometimes the post office does not do a great job on postmarking those. Are we setting ourselves up in this situation where there's going to be an argument whether I mailed it on Monday, I swear I did.
Yeah.
And postmarked just as a blur.
Well, Madam Chair, Senator Ruff, we can't help them there. If the postmark is not readily seen, the vote could not be counted. If it didn't come in by 7 p.m. on Election Day, the postmark wouldn't really matter if it came in the mail by 7 p.m. on Election Day, but in that case, this bill would not help that individual.
Okay, is there any member of the audience who wishes to speak in favor of this bill?
Walt Latham, President of the Registrars Association, and we are especially happy with it, with the amendments. It gives us time to do our job as far as counting the ballots on Election Day, processing the ballots that come in after Election Day, while also being able to satisfy the requirement that the Electoral Board finish the canvass of the election by 7 days after the election. And then we would just count the late arriving ballots later. And it would also be a benefit to the military and overseas voters as well, as far as giving them some extra time to make up for whatever, as Delegate Sickles said, vagaries of the post office they may encounter. And we have had, I hate to run down public servants. I think that the people in the post office work very hard, but we have had some issues with the post office that we are noticing, and we are concerned. The deadline right now for people to apply for an absentee ballot is a week before the election, and that is just, frankly, it's misleading. If it were intentional, it would be an attempt to disenfranchise people because their ballot is not going to get back to us in time. By the time we mail it, they vote it and get it back to us. So this would give them some additional time, and it's the only alternative would be to move back the deadline for applying for an absentee ballot. So we support it with the amendment.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon. Angie Bezick on behalf of Verified Voting, and we also support this bill.
Great. Is there anybody who wishes to speak in opposition to the bill or has a concern? Good afternoon.
Good afternoon. Madam Chairman Clara Wheeler, Vice Chair of the State Board of Elections. I speak as a voter and as someone who has run a central absentee precinct. When we start changing deadlines, how far will we change the deadline? This year it's 3 days. Next year it's 7 days. The year after that it's 2 weeks. We need to do a better job of informing the public, and most people understand the vagaries of the Postal Service. We know, most people know, that you can't mail a letter and expect it to get across town in 7 days. It doesn't happen anymore. I would concur and restate Senator Ruff's statement that what are we going to do when there's a smudged postal or the person says, I know I mailed it on Monday and there's no postmark. No postmark. Stamp's not even canceled. Do people run down with their absentee ballots at, 5 minutes to midnight on the day of election and vote, even though the polls are closed and the post office is closed, but they drop it in and it gets stamped? I think we have deadlines for lots of things, and we need to hold to them so that everyone's ballot is treated the same and every voter is treated the same. Thank you.
Can I ask you a question? Yes, Clarabelle, just one quick question. What about our overseas military and the challenge that we have with some of those ballots coming back slowly.
And we do. And the UOCAVA and the other slowly returned, we have talked about that. There have been bills put forward, and I'm absolutely sympathetic with our overseas ballot, military ballots. We need to have a better system for them, and we need to look at it very carefully. The not to pick the scab here, but if this bill passes, will there be a fiscal impact? Will localities have to pay for additional voting equipment? Because if you close out the cap, you shut down the voting machine that's been used for central absentee voting, and you continue to get ballots. How are you going to count them? Are you going to count them by hand? Are you going to have a separate new optical scan machine that you use just for the late arrivals? That's a cost. That's a huge cost.
Good.
Thank you.
Good afternoon. Welcome.
Madam Chairman, Kate Hanley, Secretary of the Electoral Board, and Clarabelle is always faster than I am, and I was really trying to speak in favor, and she got up more quickly. I have statistics for you from Fairfax County. We have been concerned about this problem for a long time, and as Delegate Sickles mentioned, the deadline is such that people literally, if we get their absentee application on they mail it, we get it in on Tuesday, they probably are not going to be able to get their ballot back to us by Election Day, because the post office now says that first-class mail is anywhere from 3 to 5 days. And at a conference that our staff attended, put on by the post office not long ago, they recommended that the deadline for application for elections be 11 to 15 days prior to the election. Ours is 7. So this helps address that. And you see there the statistics that we have received for the last several years of the numbers of ballots that have come in that would have counted, many of those would have counted, most of those would have counted on the Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday after the election. And I just provide that to you for your consideration, to recognize that I believe that this is a situation where people think their votes are going to be counted and they're not. And I think that is very unfortunate in our system.
And can I just ask you a quick question?
Sure.
This deadline, moving this would now align this and make this the same deadline as the provisional ballot.
It would,
deadline.
Well, only ID provisionals. We have to go ahead. We have 2,500 provisionals in a presidential year, 715,000 registered voters. That's a couple. So we can still make the Tuesday certification because we do now, and this would not be as huge a number as that. With the amendment that Delegate Sickles has put in, that we can go ahead and report the cap. Our central absentee cap on a presidential year will be about 130,000. And you would want us to go ahead and report that with this amendment, because that precinct alone is big enough to change a number of elections. And so you wouldn't want to wait to report that till the following Monday.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Senator Cosgrove.
Thank you. Madam Chairman, I think the answer to this quandary is not this bill, and with all due respect, I voted for the last 2 bills of Delegate Sickles. I think the answer to this is actually moving the date back as far as requesting an absentee ballot. I mean, at one point in time, do we stop holding the voter responsible for his or her own ballot? Now, we're moving the goalpost further and further, and see, I told you I agree with Ms. Wheeler most of the time. But I think that this bill is probably not the right way to go on that, so I'm not going to be able to support the bill, and I'll wait till other people talk to make a motion.
Senator Ruff.
A lot of humans, and I can speak to myself, like to procrastinate. And if you believe that you got another day to do it, then you're going to put it in another day later. So I think we're setting the voters up for failure when we start allowing them to procrastinate. They know when Election Day is. We need to do a better job of making sure that they get a ballot in time. not try to push that deadline to the very end. You're going to find more and more people are going to be upset because they didn't get the ballot in time.
Madam Chair.
Okay, Senator Sickles.
Can I just respond a couple of things? It's a little bit of a zoo in our current system now with people trying to go out and make sure everything's in the post office and scour the post office to make sure. This would take a little bit of pressure off that, but this is not a voter responsibility issue. This is not. This is about perfectly responsible voters, and this bill does not solve all the problems that are created by our postal system not being as it's nobody here's fault that our postal system is not as good as it used to be. And when you say they need to go earlier, I think there's some federal issues with regard to our 45 days and getting our military ballots out. But it is beyond control of a lot of people. So this is just to help a little bit to give it 2.5 days because the registrar is still working to the provisional ballot day at noon on Friday. So it's just 2.5 more days for a lot of people to have their vote counted that no fault of their own, that they should have put it in the mailbox 2 days earlier, 1 day earlier. So I don't know how people that are going to try to improve their behavior are going to think of this one. Yeah.
Okay, anybody else in the audience who wishes to speak for or against? Any other members of the committee who have a question for the patron?
Madam Chairman, I have a
Committee
motion.
operates on a motion.
I move to PBI.
Second.
Okay, the motion's been made and properly seconded to pass by indefinitely. House. Okay, there's a substitute motion. Okay, there's a substitute motion to report House Bill 2682. It's been made and properly seconded. All in favor, please vote aye.
Ayes 6, noes 8.
Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you, Delegate Sickles. Okay, so we need to go back to the PBI motion. Can we just reverse that vote?
Sure. Yeah, just reverse.
Yeah. Okay.
Vote to PBI.
The next vote is to pass the bill by indefinitely. All in favor, please vote aye.
That's right. Those are gone. Ayes 8, noes 6.
Okay, and we have to go back to one bill where I mistakenly overlooked the letter. And we earlier, I'd like to ask that we reconsider the vote by which we reported House Bill 2790. That was Delegate Rush's absentee voting no excuse bill. We reported it with amendments, and we needed to refer it to finance. So could I ask that motion been made and properly seconded to report Delegate Rush's absentee no excuse in-person voting bill, which is House Bill 2790. All in favor, please vote aye. This is to reconsider.
Oh, I'm sorry. I got it.
Okay.
Ayes 14, no 0.
Thank you. Now the bill is properly before us. And the motion has been made to report and re-refer to finance. All in favor, please vote aye. I apologize for my
Ayes
mistake
12,
on
noes
that.
2.
Okay. Does that, Yancey, sorry, Delegate Yancey.
Thank you, Madam Chairwoman. I know the hour is long. Simply put, the bill before you, House Bill
Delegate
9.
Yancey, I just have to say,
Yes.
welcome.
Thank you.
I have to go do a bill across the hall. I'm going to turn it over to Senator Reeves.
Oh.
Delegate Yancey, go ahead.
Thank you, Senator Reeves. Mr. Chairman and members of the committee, House Bill 1929 is a bill that addresses transparency, specifically in regards to disclosure of all contributions. Mr. Chairman and members, what this bill seeks to achieve is that for out-of-state donations that are coming in, often sometimes they're small dollar donations, just simply that they be reported, just like any other donation in the Commonwealth. I can be more than happy to get into further detail, but that's what the bill seeks to achieve, Mr. Chairman.
All right, I'm having a problem pulling it up, so bear with me 1 second. Any members have a question for Delegate Yancey on the bill? Senator Evans.
State bill?
Mr. Chairman, yes, Senator Evan, this bill would just that for out-of-state donations of any dollar size, that they would just be reported like any other donation that a person would be receiving in the Commonwealth.
So our campaign treasurers would keep track of like $25 or something from your cousin? Okay.
Mr. Chairman, Senator Evan, that is correct.
Thank you.
So this would catch $100 and below out of state.
Yes, Mr. Chairman.
But anything that's $100 and over in state, they still have the option, or 99, not to have reported?
That is correct, Mr. Chairman.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman,
Yeah.
clarification, you're saying reporting. They're required to report it. It just doesn't have to show up as listed by the individual.
Mr. Chairman, what I respond to Senator Ruff would be is that we're seeing in elections, not just in the Commonwealth, but outside of Virginia as well, that there's large donations, smaller donations, but the significant amount coming in whereby we're hearing from our constituencies and they're saying, well, where's this money coming from? Who are these people? We just would like to know. It's just simple about transparency. It doesn't prohibit anybody from accepting an out-of-state donation if they so choose. It's just about transparency and to disclose that information.
Is this Chris Piper still here?
But you're actually going to put that name and address on the report because you've got to collect that information today.
Mr. Chairman and Senator Ruff, what I would respond to you by saying is that you do it now with the State Board of Elections. If you have even a $5 expenditure, you have to report that information, who it is, where it is, and so on and so forth. It would be the same thing in the opposite way. It would just be a disclosure of that amount and who that person is and from where they come from.
That's fine. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman.
Senator Cosgrove.
Thanks. Mr. Chairman, I hope that we'll look favorably upon this bill. Delegate Yancey brings up a couple of good points about the expenditures. $5, whatever, we have to list that now. This will cast a light on what's actually happening in politics now. People are talking about, dark money or PAC money or Citizens United, whatever. Well, the new deal is to basically go countrywide and say, send Senator Cosgrove $25. And you come up with this large hunk of money that basically is virtually non-reportable. And it can be larger than any corporate donation you might get. But still, the people of Virginia have no idea where this money's come from, whether it's in-state, whether it's out-of-state. This is a bill that I think we need to pass to put some sunshine on what's happening with campaign financing, especially the way it's going now, from the internet side. Thank you.
Let's vote.
Anybody wish to speak to the bill in the audience? For or against? Bueller? Anyone? Ferris Bueller? All right. It's been moved and properly seconded to report the bill and re-refer it to finance. It's been requested. That's your motion? All right. Committee will vote.
Ayes 506.
Bryce, didn't you have?
No, the committee, the chairman left without leaving a proxy.
I know, but somebody had Chase into step.
Senator Vogel had him.
Oh, good.
Okay, so the motion has been properly moved and seconded to pass by indefinitely the bill. Committee will now vote.
Ayes 6, noes 5.
Sorry, Delegate, your bill failed to report.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, members.
committee will stand at ease just for a
Mr.
second.
Chairman, we had that one resolution back. Do you want me to present it, or do you want to handle that? Okay.
The chairman yields to the,
Chairman.
all right, we'll take it up. Okay, we have one resolution before us. It's Senate Joint Resolution 332, confirming appointments by the governor of certain persons communicated to the General Assembly January 22nd, 2019, has to do with agricultural, forestry, commerce, and trade. I don't think there's any problems with the folks that are being appointed, and I would entertain a motion. It's been moved and properly seconded by Senator Sproul to report Senate Joint Resolution 332. The committee will vote.
Mr. Chairman,
Senator Cosgrove?
I was wondering if we could just stand at ease for a couple of minutes. I see the chairman's here. There seems to be some confusion. And before we vote on this, I'd like to see
Is that on this?
what maybe happened.
Committee will stand at ease for a second. What? They're working on a bill. You got someone out here you're worried about?
No. I want to reconsider Yancey's bill. And I don't want to because if they're not going to reconsider, then we need to kill that whole thing.
Well, she's back in here now.
Well, I know, but so it's D-staff.
Oh, was she
She
down there?
had his proxy.
Okay. Well, we can still do it since they're here. Hey, great. Would you be willing to pull that other bill up about?
All right, then I'm going to make a motion to kill this. Yep. Okay.
So just for a point of clarification, I regret I had to leave and go across the hall to present a bill. And I left Senator Reeves, my co-chair, to chair the committee. And I didn't realize that him having my proxy being able to vote for me meant that the other two could not vote. So I had the proxy for Senator DeSteph and Senator Chase, who had instructed me to vote in favor of the bill. So because I have a great deal of respect for their request and for the fact that they trusted me with their proxy, I would like to ask that that bill be reconsidered so that I could vote their proxy.
Madam Chair, we actually are on the Senate Joint Resolution, have a standing motion at current, and we're on pause on that. So if we can bring Senate Bill, Nancy, what's your bill number? 1929 up before the committee. Are there any of my colleagues on the right that are willing to a motion to reconsider the vote in which House Bill 1929 failed to report? Committee will stand at ease. Okay. Senator Evan, do you have a motion to reconsider in which? Okay, it's been moved and properly seconded that we reconsider that vote. Committee will vote. Wait, Jill's not up here, Hobie.
Oh, sorry.
You got to restore her board. There you go. Okay.
Ayes 14, no zero.
Okay, now the bill is properly back before the committee. I think we've heard the bill. I think we understand if it's reported, it has to go re-refer to finance. Without further discussion, the committee will vote. On House Bill 1929. That is the motion, to report and re-refer.
Ayes 7, no 7.
Ayes 7, no 7. The bill fails for the second time.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, members.
Yep. All right. We are now in the process to take up Senate Joint Resolution 332. There was a motion. It's been properly seconded to report the bill by Senator Cosgrove. The committee will vote.
Ayes 14, no 0.
14-0. With that, Meg, are we done? The committee will rise. Thank you all.